I felt very violated. I had never been hurt like that from another human being. And so it was just kind of awful to think that I'm a nurse and I just worked my first few years in a pandemic. And I have been through so much. And I show up to work every day and I take care of you. And this is how I get treated. Like, I'm doing my best to care for you. And this is how you treat me.
Hello, and welcome to the Art of Emergency Nursing podcast. This is where we share stories for inspiration, entertainment, and encouragement, because we all know emergency nurses have the best stories. Now here's your host, Kevin McFarland.
Hey everybody, Kevin McFarland here from the Art of Emergency Nursing, and thanks for listening to the podcast, and thanks for downloading this episode. I have good news and bad news. The good news is I have a great episode for you with a story that you're not going to forget. And that is the reason why I had to get this podcast out. Even with the bad news is my audio sounds absolutely terrible in this episode. But my guest's audio sounds pretty okay. It's not bad. So you'll get the gist. Please be tolerant of my audio. Sorry it's so bad in this episode. But this is an important enough episode that I figured I needed to get it out anyway. Now let me tell you a little bit about this week's episode. Imagine you're a brand new nurse and you get assaulted by a patient. You're sitting there minding your own business and the patient just comes up and starts wailing on you out of nowhere, completely out of nowhere. Now imagine finding out that that patient's still going to be coming to your emergency room because they're a frequent flyer. They're there all the time. And imagine that they have 49 total assaults and have not been prosecuted. That is the story about my guest today, who is a brand new nurse who was assaulted by a patient and told her story. And it did get some media attention and some media traction, and she shared an amazing social media post that I seen. And I knew that I had to have her as a guest on my podcast. So you are going to hear the story firsthand of a brand new nurse who got assaulted. Now, the great news is, as you will be able to tell by the podcast, she hasn't lost her spirit. She still loves nursing, still wants to be an ER nurse, and is still doing what she can to take care of the patients she looks after. So you are going to love this episode with my friend, Anna.
My name's Anna. I am an ER nurse in Missouri. And I don't really have a story, like that one experience or moment that made me want to be a nurse. I just honestly really love science and the whole medical field. So that's what took me to nursing.
Nice. Good way to go. Good way to go. So what did you do before you became a nurse? Like, were you a full-time student? Did you work doing something else?
Yeah. So I worked at Starbucks when I was in high school, and then for a few years after that. And then I followed my Starbucks manager and went and cleaned houses with her. So I've done several different things. But then, like I mentioned before, when I was in nursing school, I was a tech on a med surg floor.
Nice.
I've been in the medical field now for about 4 years.
Okay. That's not bad. And how long have you been a nurse, you said?
Just for 2 years.
2 years.
Just been a nurse for 2 years.
So you still got that new nurse smell. You're still pretty.
I haven't burned out yet.
That's good. You know what's kind of funny about burnout? I've been a nurse for 15 years and I've been in healthcare for like probably 25. And like I don't feel burnt out. Like I haven't.
That's awesome. I
haven't felt burnt out. Like there are times that I was like, okay, I need to get another job. Like there are times I've burnt out on a particular job, but for the most part, I haven't really felt burnt out. Like I haven't felt like I was done. So
there's so many different things I feel like you can do.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of different things you can do, and there's a lot of options for you as a nurse. Mm-hmm. So that's a good thing. So, all right. And at what point did you know you made the right decision? Like what point in your nursing were you like, oh yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing?
That's a hard question. So whenever I was working upstairs on that med surg floor as a tech, I did accept a nursing position there, just because that was the only place I'd worked. And I just thought, well, yeah, of course I will work here. Then I got thrown into the ER during clinicals, against my will. I did not want to be there. I thought, why would you want to work in the ER? And so I did, I think like 12-hour shifts there, and I absolutely loved it. I saw the most horrendous trauma come in on my first day, and I just thought, I have to be here. I would be so bored going anywhere else.
You're like, this has broken me.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So patients always say that it's so crazy, and I'm like, but I couldn't do the non-crazy now. I would be bored.
Yeah, it's hard to go back. I can't imagine even doing education now, like is hard for me because nothing excites me. I'm like, whatever, it's fine. Like, do
you get to go out and take care of patients sometimes?
I don't, not in my role.
Oh no.
Yeah, not in my role. The educators that I work with, the department educators I work with get to. I unfortunately do not. Like I work for the executive group, and they're like, no, you don't get to take care of patients unless. Though they did tell us when COVID was kind of peaking, they're like, oh, understand you may be frontline. Like if shit hits the fan, as it did in New York, you're going to be out there taking care of patients. I'm like, that's fine as long as you put me in an ER and nowhere else. Like I can't. Like, don't put me on the med surg floor and expect me to take care of patients because that's not going to go well.
No.
So, but I was like, but if you want me to have trauma patients or do some triage, you bet. Sure.
Yeah.
No problem with that at all. So, so tell me about a patient that changed the way you practice.
Oh, geez. You ask hard questions like interview questions.
I know, right?
HR interview questions.
Oh, this is much more fun than HR interview questions.
I had one of my very first trauma patients as a baby nurse was this little girl who came in after being kicked by a horse. She was like less than 2, I think. Like little girl got kicked by a horse and thrown into a barbed wire fence, and it just completely like opened up her abdomen. I mean, it sounds so awful, but like her intestines were literally hanging out when they brought her in.
Oh my gosh.
So, and she was awake, wasn't intubated or anything. Her eyes were wide open and she was looking around the room. It was the craziest thing ever. And so that was one of those cases where she's just in our trauma room for like 15 minutes and then go straight up to the OR. But it was a horrific 15 minutes. And we did not expect her to make it at all just because of what she looked like. And she got discharged like within a week. It was insane. I remember the trauma doctor coming down and saying, hey, that little girl whose intestines were hanging out? We just discharged her.
You're like,
and how? This is amazing. So I think that's actually my favorite story, that she came in like that and then now is fine.
So you in a level 1 trauma center?
Yeah.
Okay. That's stuff like that. Like you're going, holy cow, how does that happen? Like it's just crazy. And then they do fine.
It's weird how humans can survive. Humans are so fragile, but then so strong at the same time.
Yeah, it's so resilient. I'll never forget, I was when I was fairly new to the trauma center, we were sitting there waiting for a trauma, and as a little girl got ran over by a car. Yeah. And this doctor named Dr. Key goes, oh, it's fine. Kids get run over by cars all the time. They're fine. Like they're like dogs. You can hit them in the car and they'll be all right. And everyone was like, what? Why would you say that? And they're like, oh my God, Dr. Key, you can't say that. And he's like, what? It's true. It's true. And I was like, oh my God. So sure enough, this little girl comes in. She's got tire tracks across her chest, like literally across her chest. And she's fine. Like vital signs are good. She's fine. And we're like going, oh my gosh, she should have like these horrific injuries. No, she was actually okay.
That's crazy.
How does that happen? Like couple kids fall out of a third-story window that you're like, and they landed in a tree, and then on something else, and then on something else, and they're fine. So I'm like, how does that happen? How long was your orientation as a new nurse?
Oh, I think it was 12 weeks.
Okay. It's pretty short. You're like, that's all. Probably seems like a lot, but not much at the same time.
I remember being terrified. I had such bad anxiety coming off of orientation. I was just so terrified I was going to kill somebody.
Yeah, I understand. Because as a nurse, you totally can. Like, it's totally possible. Like, it could easily happen. And like, you not even know it. You'd be like, I had no idea. What's the best advice a nurse mentor ever gave you?
The person that oriented me, her name's Natalie, and she is amazing. She is the shining light of our ER.
Nice.
She always says you can do anything for 12 hours.
It's true.
And I love that. We come in and they say, hey, you're 7 nurses short. Today's going to be awful. Just so you know, we already don't have any beds, but you can do anything for 12 hours. And it might suck, but our patients need us. And so, I mean, that has definitely made days easier for me, just thinking I can do this for 12 hours.
It's a really great attitude to be like, no, what are you going to do? Let me take care of this. So, yeah. One of the things I've been lucky, and like I said, I think I said I've been a nurse for about 15 years, and like I've never felt like, oh God, I gotta go to work. Like, most of the time it's like, I gotta go to work. I got stuff to do, but I'd be all right. So
yeah,
it's crazy. It's crazy. So you caught my attention when you posted in Facebook about being assaulted by a patient. Can you tell the audience a little bit about that?
Yes. So on February 27th, I was the psych nurse. We have a 4-bed kind of psych area in our ER. It's just a dead end hallway really, and it has 4 psych safe rooms. So I was the psych nurse for the day. We had a patient that we very frequently have, that I've dealt with the whole 2 years that I've been there. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting at my desk on my computer. This patient got up, walked out of their room and didn't say any words to me. So there was no confrontation. They did not seem upset. They didn't seem angry. And they just charged at me and pushed me up against a wall. I was in a rolly chair that had armrests, so I couldn't get out of the chair. I was stuck in the chair. And the patient just kept hitting me in the head over and over. A sitter that was with the patient tried to get them off of me. And that actually meant a lot because sitters aren't supposed to touch patients, no matter what. They're not supposed to touch them. So the fact that she was trying to get this individual off of me. And then, eventually I was just screaming loud enough that security heard me and was able to come down the hallway and get them off of me. They had me watch the video, and it was less than 20 seconds, but it seemed like the longest 20 seconds of my life.
Holy cow. And just completely unprovoked. Like, no, didn't see it coming at all.
Right. It was very traumatizing.
I can only imagine. Here you are, a fairly new nurse, to have something like that happen. Like, That's incredible. Like, what a crazy thing to happen to a new grad nurse. Like,
yeah, I've been, I guess, assaulted by patients before. In the ER, you get a lot of a certain kind of population. You get a lot of people that are intoxicated or just not in their right mind. A lot of angry people. They're not having good days, obviously, and if they're in the ER. And so, I've been like smacked or verbally assaulted plenty of times, but I've never just been repeatedly hit over and over again. And it was very violating.
Holy cow. Did you get knocked out or anything like that?
No, I did not. I was not knocked out, fortunately. Everywhere that I was hit was in like my hairline. And so there wasn't even a contusion or anything that I could see. One of the doctors looked at me and they said that they offered to do a CAT scan, but I mean, I thought I was okay. So
No.
I don't think I had a concussion or anything like that.
Holy cow.
Fortunately.
That's crazy. Holy cow. How do things like that happen? Like, now, did this patient have a history of assault?
Yes, this patient did have a history of assault. And I didn't actually realize how extensive their history was until after that happened. And I went home and everyone from my ER, all of my work, family, and friends were messaging me to check on me. And they all had a story of whenever this person assaulted them. It was awful. They all said, when they hit me, this is where I was and this is what I was doing. And so then after I pressed charges, I found out that at that point it was a little over 40 assault charges that this person had had.
40 assault charges?
At that time, as of today, it's 49.
Holy cow. And has been arrested by the police or has not?
Has been arrested that I know of twice since February 27th. In my case, they were not arrested until, so I was assaulted February 27th. They were not arrested until April 7th.
For your assault?
For my assault. And then recently, there was an incident where they assaulted 3 people all at one time, and they were arrested shortly after that. So I know of 2 times that they've been arrested, but there are no actual charges against them. The prosecutor is not bringing charges against them. So I'm not very familiar on how the justice system works and all the ins and outs of all that, but I have been told that there haven't actually been charges brought against them.
Wow. Did you think to ask why? Did you get a chance to ask why?
So I immediately after I was assaulted while I was still at work, I called the police and they showed up and they took a report. The sad thing was they even knew the patient's name before they got there. They said, let me guess, this was so-and-so, which was very sad. But then a few weeks later, I called the prosecutor's office and they said that the prosecutor was still reviewing the case and deciding if they wanted to bring charges against the individual.
That's insanity.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's really all the information I have as far as that goes. The person that I spoke with on the phone was very surprised at the number of reports that have been made against this person.
I bet. They probably didn't expect that coming at all.
No.
That's the craziest story. So did you sustain any long-term injuries? Were you okay? Were you?
So physically I was fine. My head hurt for a few days, but I was really fine. I made that post on Facebook on April 8th that went viral, which I did not intend to happen at all. And a local news outlet reached out to me and asked me to do an interview. And so I did an interview at my ER with my director and my manager.
Nice.
The day after the interview, I went to work and I was the triage nurse. And within 30 minutes, I had so many patients and visitors come up to me and ask me if I was the nurse that had been assaulted. And I kind of lost my mind for a second. I'm guessing I had a panic attack. I just felt really, really overwhelmed. So I went to my leadership and I told them what was going on. And I took a short leave from work. They let me have 3 weeks off. And so physically, I'm fine. Mentally, it took quite a toll on me. But I think I'm doing a lot better now. I'm back at work. During the 3 weeks, I was really missing work. And so it definitely didn't deter me from being an ER nurse.
Yeah.
I still want to be there. but I did have to take some time to work on my mental health.
What a crazy story. And when you say work on your mental health, did you get like professional help, or did you seek like counseling or something like that? Because it seems like maybe that would be nice.
Yeah. So my facility offers something called the Employee Assistance Program, which is just psychiatrists and counselors and therapists that you can get in contact with, and they will pay for so many sessions. And so I did that. And then I also met with my primary care doctor, and she put me on some short-term medication just until I was feeling better, and that really helped. So I was really supported by my facility.
That's awesome. That's really great to hear.
Yeah.
That's really great to hear. What was it like going back to the ER for the first shift after that?
I was terrified. I don't really know what I was terrified of. I was really anxious. I guess just maybe of being in that situation again. I actually haven't been the psych nurse since that incident, which is wonderful. My coworkers have made sure that I have stayed away from the psych hall and that population for the most part.
Good.
The first day I went back, that patient was there in our psych hall, but I have not had to directly care for them. So that's good.
That's good. Wow. What a crazy story. And after that assault, did he keep coming back to your emergency department?
Oh, yes. They frequently come back. All the time. And there are no state facilities that will accept this individual just because of their violent history. So they stay in our ER for, 60, 70, 90 hours at a time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's kind of crazy, right? Like it's kind of
unfortunate. And it's not fair. Honestly, I'll just say it. It's not fair.
No, it's not fair. It's not fair at all. So initially he did not get charged, or did he get charged with anything?
No, there have been no charges. So we have I don't know if it's the same in Texas. We have CaseNet. Do you guys have CaseNet?
I don't think so.
Okay. So we have, it's a website called CaseNet where you can look up anyone that has charges brought against them, and it will tell you like their court date, what the charges were, if they are in prison, when they've been released, all those things. And she has had 0 charges.
That's great. How does somebody assault that many people and never have a charge?
That's what I don't understand. I'm assuming it is because of their psychiatric history, and that they can essentially plead insanity or, not in their right mind. Yeah. But that doesn't make it okay.
Yeah.
That's something I've had a really hard time with since the incident, is that, so my post had like 12,000 comments on it. And there was, an insane amount of comments of people saying, you signed up for this. This was your job. You let this patient down by allowing this to happen. There are people that are saying things like, I can't imagine what you did to provoke this patient.
Yeah.
And I didn't do anything.
Someone would blame you. Like,
there are a lot of people blaming me. And like I said, I didn't intend for that to go viral. I have like 400 friends on Facebook, and someone just asked me if I would make it public so they could share it. Because my entire profile is private. And so I made it public, and then it just exploded. And at this point, I feel like it would do more harm to delete it. Unfortunately, it was nice to hear that I wasn't alone. It made me feel like I'm not alone, but I feel for all of the other healthcare workers that this has happened to. There are thousands of comments on that post from people saying that they have been assaulted. There were people posting pictures of their injuries and talking about how they can't work anymore and how they've had to have surgery and all these medical bills from being assaulted by patients.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. It's crazy to think that, like, in today's day, that still happens. Like,
I feel like it's allowed to happen more even. There are so many laws protecting patients. And so technically in the state of Missouri, it is a felony to assault a healthcare worker. So it is a felony for that person to have assaulted me. The difference is they actually have to have those charges brought against them. Yep. And if they can say that that person was not in their right mind, then they do not get charged.
That's crazy. Like there's got to be some kind of accountability, because even if you're psychotic, like, unless you're just full on like cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and completely out of it, like there's some part of you that knows exactly what you're doing. Like I have to believe that.
Exactly.
And I mean, you become a victim of your choices, or I don't know if that's the right word, but
no, I know what you mean.
Man, that's crazy. What a crazy story. So did you have any long-term consequences from all this? I assume you went to the doctor at some point.
Yeah, I didn't have any other than like the mental health issues I faced for a while that I talked about. I
Tell the audience a little bit about that. Like what did you experience?
I felt very violated. I had never been hurt like that from another human being. And so it was just kind of awful to think that I'm a nurse and I just worked my first few years in a pandemic. And I have been through so much, and I show up to work every day and I take care of you. And this is how I get treated.
Yeah.
Like, I'm doing my best to care for you, and this is how you treat me.
It's crazy to think that stuff like that happens, because you're like, of course it wouldn't happen, but it does all the time.
Yeah, it's ridiculous that this person has injured 49 people and is still allowed to keep coming back, and we are still forced to care for them.
Yeah. And so how did they work that? So for instance, this guy comes in and you're like, okay, I'm not taking care of, I'm just saying guy, I don't know what the gender was. Mm-hmm. You know, Bob is coming in, you're going to have to be Bob's nurse. So how do you say, like, sure, we'll help you, but this person won't?
I don't know. I've had a lot of nurses come up to me afterwards that I work with that say, I'm not going back there. If they tell me to be the psych nurse, I will quit. I'm not going back there.
Yeah.
I'm not putting myself at risk knowing that patient is back there. As far as I know so far, no one has actually refused. They've never called someone's name and said, hey, you're going to be the psych nurse. And that nurse has said, no, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
So I don't know what would happen. I would not feel comfortable being back there.
It's not what ER nurses do. We usually are like, all right, we'll do whatever we have to do to make it happen. But
right. Yeah.
That's really crazy. Like it's just crazy that happens in today's days.
Mm-hmm.
So now, so this just came completely out of the blue. Was he violent before he hit and punched you, or?
Not that day. The patient had asked me for some crayons to draw with, so I provided them with that. And last I knew, they were on their bed drawing and eating lunch. So it wasn't like they had been escalated throughout the day and I was not doing an appropriate job de-escalating. I had actually just given them their medication, just their regular medication, which included, I believe, Valium and something else. I can't remember what it was, if it was Haldol or what it was. But I had just given them their medications like an hour prior. And someone actually said, well, have they not had their medications today? And I said, I just gave it to them. They should be knocked out. And they're not.
So I'm assuming this person has a long psychiatric history.
Very long, yes.
Yeah. Wow. And never charged.
Never charged. They live with their parent, and because they live with their parent and their parents can't handle them. So this person is an adult, but they live with their parents and the parent cannot handle them. So they bring them to the ER whenever they can no longer control them.
We had a patient that was the same boat. Like he lived with his parents and he was, 6 foot something, 300-pound male who, big bodybuilder kind of guy. And he would, when he got to drinking, he was just an angry, mean person. And same thing, they call 911 and say they can't handle him. And they bring him to us and we'd be like, okay, try to stay cool. And sometimes he would, and sometimes he wouldn't. And it was just unfortunate. It was unfortunate to see. So what a story. So I'm curious, how did the rest of your staff handle this guy? Because I got to tell you, I can't imagine it's hard to be kind to somebody who hurts one of your own. And I'm not saying they're anything other than completely professional. I'm sure they were, but it's hard to be kind to somebody who is dangerous and has hurt someone you care about.
So right after it happened, security was back there dealing with the patient, and I just left the area and went over to one of my clinical supervisors, and I just sat down and lost my mind. I just started crying and telling her what happened, and she got really upset, and she said, no, she did not just do that. And my clinical supervisor went back there and talked to the patient and was very, very professional. I mean, that's why she's a clinical supervisor. She sat down with the patient and she said, this cannot happen. This is not okay. You are not allowed to treat my staff like this whenever we have been nothing but kind and professional to you.
Yeah.
And I guess the patient actually said something along the lines of, I don't know why I did that. I can't believe that I hurt that person for no reason. But that doesn't make it any better.
No, it doesn't.
And the fact that they've done it so many times since then does not help their case. So they obviously put another nurse back there, and that nurse is very professional and had a very good straight face the whole shift, I'm sure. But everyone's taken their turn back there caring for this patient.
Wow.
As far as I know, everyone's tried their best to help this patient and give them all the resources they can and really truly try to make their life better. And I mean, at some point we just ran out of resources,
Yeah, understand. What did your hospital leadership team say? I can't even imagine. I don't.
So within my ER, they have been very supportive. My director of my ER has been so supportive and 100% on my side. I think that there are people that are higher up that weren't very happy with the fact that I spoke about this. They haven't come forward and said anything. I've just gotten some hints that maybe people aren't so happy that I'm putting my hospital in this light.
Yeah.
But as far as my leadership team directly has been wonderful.
That's good. Holy cow.
They've sent out, it did spur some emails to be sent out to the whole hospital saying that this is a problem and that they recognize that this is a problem, patients assaulting staff members, and that they are there and they're on our side and everything, which is great and wonderful to say, but this patient's still allowed to come back to the hospital.
Yeah.
It's not like they've upped security. We now have panic buttons and whenever you're the psych nurse, but
That's something. That's at least
I
a little
guess.
progress. I worked for one organization, and they had a process that we had to fire patients. Does your hospital fire patients?
My hospital does not fire patients.
Oh, that's too bad. This hospital had a process where they would fire patients, and it was one of those where, like, okay, if you show up for an emergency, we have to treat you because that's intolerable. Like, that's just, it is what it is. But it was one of those, but you're not getting admitted. And if you don't have a medical emergency that's deemed as a medical emergency, then out you go. And we had a committee that was the committee that overseen that process. And I remember hearing of these, these assaults and stuff, and I was just like going, holy cow. They had a process put together where they said, okay, like if this guy comes in, he can only be seen for emergencies. And if he does have to come in and he does need to be seen for an emergency, then an officer's got to be on standby the whole time he's there.
Yeah.
And that made staff feel a little bit better because we had guys come in and be like, I'm going to shoot this place up. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And you're like going, okay, this could be, like, we don't know if this is a credible threat or just him talking smack. You got to treat it like a credible threat. So,
yeah. The problem with this patient is we do have, especially our homeless population around here, they will come in for obnoxious things. One time I had a woman come in and I asked her what her emergency was today. And she said, I need to heat up my dinner. That was her emergency. So that obviously is not a medical emergency. But this patient in particular that assaulted me always has a credible medical emergency. They have inserted things into orifices that they should not, or they have consumed things that they should not.
Yeah.
And so then they have to stay.
Yeah. Have you had to take care of this patient again?
No, I have not. The only interaction I've had with them since then is one time as the triage nurse. They did check in. But once again, my staff, I saw the patient walk in the door, and then the next thing I knew, they were gone to the back. My staff just kind of went around me and I think called charge and said, hey, this patient needs to go to the back right now.
Yeah.
And so they did that. So I didn't have to talk to them at all.
Good for them.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Holy cow. Now, does this person have like mental health history? Like, or they do just behavior, like in substance or behavior, or do they actually have something diagnosable?
I believe they have something diagnosable. They actually don't have any sort of substance abuse history that I know of. They never come in intoxicated or under the influence of any substance. I don't know how that makes me feel. Like, because I could see like just this person's baseline behavior. Yes, this is baseline. So. Yes. Yeah. And this person, they have been through a lot of trauma in their life. I know that they have had very close family members pass away, and they have been through a lot in their life.
Yeah.
But at the same time, all of these things do not make it okay to physically harm other human beings over and over again and have no sort of punishment, or not even punishment, just maybe a reasonable place for them to go so that they don't have to live in the ER.
Yeah. That'd be nice, right?
Wonderful.
Make this a little less of an ER problem. And do the police ever get called? You said they get called, but they're not willing to charge them.
Right. So that was actually another source of confusion on my post that I made. I apparently didn't make it clear. Personally pressed charges.
Yeah, say that again.
I personally pressed charges against this person.
Yeah.
So I called the police, and the police came and took my information.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of people who said, well, you can't just wait for someone to magically arrest them. You have to do something. You have to contact the police and let them know. And I did everything that I could have done. aside from hiring my own lawyer and going after this person, I shouldn't have to hire a lawyer to go after someone.
Did you ever bring anything up to like the district attorney or anything that, hey, this guy's assaulted how many people now?
There have been 49 assaults in my hospital. So I have not brought anything up.
49 assaults. I got to tell you, like, I would have the chief of police down there saying, okay, fix this, figure out what's going on. They would never accept 40 something police officers getting assaulted. Like if he assaulted one police officer, he would be arrested.
So that's one of my issues with the whole thing. And this is not an attack against police at all. I feel like nurses and police officers work very closely together. They are in our ER a lot. We take care of them when the unimaginable happens to them. Absolutely. I don't have anything against police officers, but I mean, there are so many times whenever you hear of a police officer getting injured and that person is immediately arrested, or there's like a manhunt out for them.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case. And my attack was caught 100% on camera. There's a camera right above me. It caught the whole thing. The police reviewed it. There is no question as to what happened.
Wow.
So that's very frustrating.
I can't believe they didn't arrest this person. Like, what a failure of the system.
Such a failure of the system. I guess, legally, this person could not be arrested because they were still receiving medical care in the emergency room. But it blows my mind that they cannot be arrested upon discharge. Yeah.
Like I'm stunned. Like, I'll never forget. We've had patients arrested. I've personally seen patients arrested, and the police officer waits till they get discharged and then escorts them out when they're done. And I've seen that, I don't know how many times, that like, you're like, okay, you're going to jail as soon as we're done here. Like, as soon as you're cleared, you're going to jail. How are you doing now?
Much better now.
Yeah.
I'm not at all anxious to go to work.
Were you at first?
Which I was. Whenever the first few days that I went back, I was really anxious. I'm not sure if it was just worrying about whether I'd be in that situation again, or honestly, a lot of it is just having to relive that. Everyone wants to know what happened, and everyone wants to talk about it.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. It's just everybody at work. I mean, I go into work and everyone has their own story of what has happened to them or what. Yeah. It's crazy. But I'm honestly doing a lot better now. I love my job and what I do. So that hasn't deterred me, hasn't scared me away from the ER yet.
That's awesome. That makes me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, I'm hoping to share your story so that, to bring attention to this, because this is a big deal. Like, this is a big deal. It's something ER nurses deal with every single day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an important topic. So I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about it, because it's such an important topic to talk about.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I don't mind. I like getting the story out there and making people more aware that this is something that we deal with. You drive by hospitals and you see the signs that say heroes work here. And so they think, heroes work here. Good people work here, but we're just getting assaulted on the regular, and that's not okay.
All right. Well, I appreciate you taking so much time to talk to me. I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Art of Emergency Nursing podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on Facebook.